Thank you for joining me today for episode 15 of KyleToks. There's certainly been a lot going on, and I got quite a few videos for us, so let's jump right on in. So, without bringing my own personal politics into this, I added this video because I found that image of the flag particularly striking, and I do think there was a little bit of providence that saved President Trump's life. Makes me think of Ephesians 6:11, and I don the armor of God. Now, it's no surprise this happened, and I think it's something we all knew was it was coming. And it doesn't matter which political candidate you're voting for. If somebody takes a shot at a president or a former president or someone running for president, they have taken a shot at every single American. And I think every single one of us should be deeply offended by this. But it is no surprise that it came to this. The rhetoric from the left since 2016 has been absolutely unhinged. And don't get me wrong, I'm neither right nor left. However, I find the right to be completely ineffectual. They accomplish nothing because they are all individual fingers arguing over every single point. The most they can do is write angry letters. The left, on the other hand, presents a unified fist, and I find them to be an existential threat to our way of life. I'm going to go ahead and say that. It started in 2016, and it has progressively gotten worse year by year until they have gotten completely out of hand. And I think it's time to start reining it back in and dialing down the rhetoric. There are a lot of people in our country who are very easily manipulated and easily swayed. George Orwell would refer to them as the useful idiots. And when they hear rhetoric from our sitting president for years on end about how his opponent is a Nazi, is Hitler, is a threat to our democracy, it's only a matter of time before some deranged lunatic acts on those words. Words have meaning. Words matter. Right now, our media does not care. They will use whatever words win them points. They will change the definition of whatever words to suit their narrative. It is disgusting. I've spent the last 2 days absolutely seething in rage. And it's even affected me today. I'm even having a hard time speaking. I've kind of lost my voice. Again, it doesn't matter which political candidate you're voting for. Somebody took a shot at every last one of us when they took a shot at a former president. It cannot be allowed to continue. People need to get their act together. And they need to mind their rhetoric. I know it's easy to get emotional, but we all, myself included, need to do better. The fabric of our very existence as a Western civilization depends on it.
Did you hear what's happening with the Vatican?
No.
So the Vatican today coming out with new guidelines for apparitions, other supernatural phenomenon.
Oh.
But it's just it's weird timing.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the demon face thing that people are starting to see? It's been on the news and stuff. It's been happening with a couple people. They're saying it's a psychological disorder or something where people say that they're starting to see people's faces turn into like demon-like features. That's just an example of like what people are starting to see with
That is
just a
so
normal
scary.
face, like their features, like pointy ears, like sharp teeth.
Weird.
Yeah.
Turns out they're just British.
Got him.
So now that we've gotten the events of the last 2 days out of the way and we can start to get back to our regular order of business, I do find it quite interesting that the Vatican would choose now to upgrade their guidelines on the paranormal, the spooky, and the demonic. People have been reporting not just seeing demon faces, but there's also been a lot of folks saying they keep seeing shadows out of their eyes, strange lights in the sky, and a whole bunch of weird stuff. It does make you wonder if something's going on. I do think that it's not coincidental that they would release this guidance now. What do you guys think?
I know that Dave when Dave was visited, and that's up for him to tell that story. that was my first real, like, what do you mean you were visited? And nobody talks about that. Everyone thinks he just ran away to Africa, and the man was offered $50 million. With the Dave thing, I'd be a blatant liar if I were to say 100% that's him.
Okay, perfect.
Because our communication ended. And when I say he stopped communicating with me when he came back. When I say came back, I'm not talking about from Africa, because the first thing he did was go on Oprah, which I find fascinating. And I highly suggest people really watch that interview intently. And I sobbed. I fucking sobbed. Because I hope it's him. But I will say, when he came back bigger, and I thought, all right, maybe he did steroids, maybe he worked out like crazy. I know he was very self-conscious being skinny his whole life. And our communication ended. Now, I had a bizarre FaceTime thing, which, again, I think is very sketch. Even the person that, there was this, I'll just leave it this. I don't know. The Dave Chappelle I knew.
Right.
He was an incredible mentor and human being to be around. Because when we started filming Half Baked, what I learned more was not the movie and all that. That's nothing. The long conversations and deep spiritual, who controls the world? Why are agents in the industry called agents?
Right.
And why are they all from a certain descent? Why? And there's nothing wrong. There were just questions like, that is interesting. Why do they all?
I'm definitely a big fan of Jim Brewer. Always have been. I think he's a very funny comic. He's got his hits and his misses, but overall, I think he's quite funny. You can tell he's really struggling with this, though. And he has been making the rounds, kind of outing some of the strange within Hollywood. Makes me wonder, actually, if he might be working with or involved with Stephen Baldwin and One Bad Movie that's on its way out, where Hollywood insiders are meant to be spilling the beans. I do wonder as well if there might be some validity to what he's saying. The possibility of people being replaced certainly is one that I've often considered, especially as I know that Hollywood likes to kind of tell us the truth through fiction, and they did just release that TV show with Jamie Foxx about how they was a clone to Tyrell, and there's been some speculation if maybe that's what they did to Jamie Foxx. I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea what kind of technology the world elites actually have compared to what we're allowed to see and interact with. I think it certainly would be a far stretch. At the same time, I know it is very easy to find an imposter, especially with how convincing the silicone masks and things like that are these days. I don't necessarily think that that's what happened to Dave, but I do think that his friend is deeply disturbed and has some questions, and I think they're valid questions. Now, as a side note, he mentioned Oprah. I got many problems with that woman. I find it coincidental that she is consistently being connected with very dastardly characters, and it seems like she's got a lot of problems with those orphanages that she's running. I think there's definitely a deep dive merited when it comes to Oprah, and for the interview he's referring to, it's often called the moment Dave Chappelle realizes she is one of them, whoever they are. Not a friend of his and not an ally to anyone who speaks truth. And I do think, like Jim Brewer said, everybody should watch that interview and do so intently. Keep your eyes open. Don't believe everything you hear, but at the same time, I think there is a lot to be suspicious of. especially in Hollywood.
Of Leviathan's name has been suggested by some scholars to suggest Leviathan is a primeval sea serpent that encircles the earth with its body, which is a belief held by some of the Israelites' neighbors.
Leviathan. On Google Earth, you can find them 100%. There's a serpent's head. There's a serpent's tail in his mouth. It does circle right around Antarctica, the bottom of the earth. Now you can see where his head is, where his tail goes into his mouth. If you all remember what just happened in that area, right by Leviathan's head, maybe he's breathing. Maybe that's what's causing the waves.
Does kind of look like a giant snake wrapping around Antarctica under the water there. That's something. Wouldn't that be crazy if that were true? You know, I mentioned before the Vikings have Jormungandr, and he's meant to do battle with Thor at Ragnarok, and both of them are meant to die. And then in Christianity, the Archangel Michael is meant to do battle with the dragon during Revelation, or during the end of times. It's quite curious, although I understand that a lot of pagan history was kind of adopted by Christians when they were converting everybody. They needed something to attract the pagans to believe in their faith, so you get a lot of those similarities. On the other hand, could that actually be Levi? I mean, that head looks... that looks like a dragon's head. It's also interesting that Bouvet Island would be sitting right over top of it. Our little blob, the source of that oceanic anomaly that has been a reoccurring thing since April. Leviathan is meant to heat up the waters around him, and we certainly have been noticing waters heating up in the ocean. That's something. Now, this is all kind of tongue-in-cheek because frankly, it's just too crazy to possibly be true, but at the same time, I'm quite compelled. It's like I can't look away. What do you guys think? Is that Leviathan? If you're enjoying this content, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Your engagement helps this channel grow, and the more this channel grows, the more videos I'll make. Let's jump right back in.
The cave system in this country is most definitely responsible for the missing people inside of the national parks and missing people in general, in my opinion. Now, on the map above, the colored dots are missing people inside of national parks that went missing under suspicious circumstances. It was made by David Paulides, not made by me. And now the black part are the cave systems inside the United States. Please look at how they line up and they match so well. Every time I look at it, it just fucks me up. Think of this like a hot to cold map for missing people inside the United States based on population. So Oklahoma has the most missing people, then Tennessee, then Texas, and then you have states like South Dakota who don't have anyone missing apparently. All of the states that have a shit ton of missing people have cave systems inside of them. There are 45,000 caves inside of this country, most of them unexplored, but the ones that we have explored, we know go on for hundreds of miles underground, and most of them are interconnected. Just as a fun fact for shiggles, over 4,500 of these caves are located inside of a national park. I'm sorry, but it just makes too much sense. It fits like a puzzle.
I think it does quite fit like a puzzle, absolutely. Especially all of the cave systems around Appalachia, where there is a very high number of strange disappearances. I'm sure a lot of it could be chalked up to people finding caves and getting lost in them, or falling in them while they're hiking. But even then, that would only account for so many. It's no coincidence that it happens within national parks. There's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're out hiking and exploring in a national park, even without bringing in conspiracies, cover-ups, or the paranormal. It's really compelling seeing the juxtaposition of missing persons reports and those tunnel systems, especially around Appalachia. The Appalachian Mountains are the same mountain range that runs all the way up into Scotland. And back before the continental drift, that mountain range would have been what separates America from ancient Egypt. And I did a video previously where someone had shown that much of the Appalachian mountain range was never covered in glacial ice or flooded. So it makes me certainly speculate that there could be some very old things that are perhaps still roaming around, maybe using those tunnels. There's a reason that there are rules when you're out in Appalachia, and it's so that you don't end up one of David Paulides' missing 411. And for anyone who's not familiar with his work, I definitely recommend checking it out. We've also recently done a video on the park ranger supervisor who came out and kind of blew the whistle a little bit on this, talking about government activity, strange staircases in the woods, and other phenomena that are otherwise abnormal. So I do think that she is absolutely onto something, and I hope that she continues to dive down that rabbit hole because I'm enjoying her work so far. Keep it up.
Hey TikTok, let's talk about the sun. A lot of people are posting about the sun, and I have myself. And the sun is definitely hotter and whiter than it's ever been in my memory. How about you? Everyone seems to be saying so. As a matter of fact, when you go outside and you stand in the shade, it feels really good. Seems like the temperature that the thermometer is telling you it is. But then as soon as you walk out into the sunshine, it's like 15 degrees hotter, and it feels like the radiation is just burning through your skin. Yeah, that's what's going on. So a lot of people are concerned about it, and I am too. And I am a seeker of truth. That's why I have this account here. I just want to know the truth. You know, there's a lot of things we've been lied to, and this seems to be something that's being hidden from us, obviously. So they have a sun simulator. It's pretty obvious to me. It's not the same sun. The old sun, or the sun I remember, was yellowish, maybe golden. Now, that sun felt warm and nurturing, and when I went out and I stared into the sun, which I did, I ignored all the people that said, don't stare into the sun. I did, no problem. It was cool. I loved it, did it all the time. But when I try to do that now, I just can't stare into the sun. I have to like prepare myself. I have to kind of squint and all those things until I can finally get to the point where I can handle it, and then I can kind of stare at it. But something inside is telling me it's not the same sun. It doesn't feel like it. And it exhausts me, and I think it exhausts everyone else too. As a matter of fact, I can see people are just losing their shit from the intense heat, the oppressiveness that it's giving. And the combination of that with all the information that's out in the propaganda media, it seems pretty bad out there. But I'm curious to find out the truth. So I saw this post about the sun, and a gentleman was claiming that the sun has a 12,000 year cycle, something in sync with the Mayan calendar, you know, where they were saying it's going to be the end of the world. And what he was saying is that after this cycle, the sun basically burns out, blows up, disintegrates. Like, okay, haven't heard that before, but I'm open-minded. I see another post. This post is from a bunch of people, and these posts are suggesting that NASA claims there's a star out there that is at the end of its life cycle, and it's about to explode. And we are able to see this with our naked eyes right here on Earth, looking up, and we should all be able to experience this. I think they have a date and a time. You could search for it. It's out there. So that guy and those people are saying that, well, there's this other star and we're going to see it explode. And then the other post is saying, well, we're in a 12,000 year cycle and our local sun is at the end of its cycle and it's supposed to explode. See where I'm going with this? So to me, the one connected to the other, is that what's going on here? And do the powers that be know this? And is that why they created the sun simulator, in addition to other things that they claim it does, and other things that the spiritual community is saying that they're trying to prevent us from achieving our awakening, our ascension? It's trying to keep us in the low frequency. Well, I can tell you that according to the Schumann resonance, the sun is definitely going through some cycles right now, and the frequency that's being measured on the planet right now, which is considered, I guess, the Earth pulse, is going up higher and higher and higher. And it's affecting us as living organisms. It's affecting our nervous system. It's upgrading our DNA, all that, yada, yada. But I'm still curious, like what's going on with the sun simulator? What's going on with the star that's supposed to explode? And does this guy have any idea what he's talking about? Our local sun having a 12,000-year cycle? Goodbye. These are questions that I am thinking about, and I wonder if you have anything that you can add to it. What's going on with the sun?
I don't think there's anything wrong with our sun. I think this is a pretty wild speculation. I don't think humanity has the resources to alter or modify our sun. Could it be something paranormal? Yeah, maybe. I'm open to it, but I haven't seen anything to really indicate that the sun is different. I've just seen a whole lot of TikTok videos of people making these claims. But of course, if it's on TikTok, it must be true. Having said that, I included this video because I do have a fun thought on the matter. All right? So this is something that I don't believe, but I think would be pretty wild and might connect some of those dots. So let's pretend there is something wrong with the sun, something different. It's brighter, it's hotter, and it's not just because we're in the middle of summer, a heat wave. So how could that be the case? Maybe a magnifying glass in front of it, such as, I don't know, the James Webb Telescope or the Hubble Telescope. So if they're magnifying the sun, why? Well, we know that there are some folks out there who really want to kick off the apocalypse. Case in point, the intentional attempt to sacrifice a red heifer to do exactly that. And I do think that our world elites, the folks that are pulling the strings, are certainly evil bastards who could probably conceive such a horrible plan. So how would they do it? Well, I mean, putting a magnifying glass in front of the sun and heating things up, that's not exactly the most effective way, unless they're trying to, I don't know, melt the ice in Antarctica to wake up Leviathan. There's a fun thought. Again, I don't think there's anything to this. I think he's on to nothing. But it is still fun to explore and keep an open mind.
They just found what under the pyramids? Now. So scientists have discovered an unknown structure under the pyramids of Giza. They're saying this is a huge breakthrough because it's not just any old structure, it's a bit weirder than that. So I'm sure we all know about the pyramids, and you probably know about all the theories, and also how they're, lined up perfectly to the stars, right on the center of the earth. It's just like all of these weird things. It's just, there's some weird stuff going on there, right? But the main thing I do need to touch on is the theory that maybe the ancient civilizations in Egypt were far more advanced than we did think. I mean, if you look at hieroglyphics, you can literally see certain things where they are depicting lights and other types of technology which clearly weren't around that long ago, right? So it's a big theory. Many people believe they were far more advanced than even us today. So just think about that while I cover this. So recently a study was done in Egypt, as they're constantly, evaluating and seeing what's going on there, and the findings were published only 2 or 3 days ago. So located 10.5 feet below the sand in the desert, they discovered this structure which roughly measures 33 by 49 feet in how big its diameter is, right? Now this was in an almost L shape, and as we know, the pyramids rise from the ground, so this structure was going into the ground. But it gets way crazier than that because it doesn't stop at that structure. Beneath where the structure ends, it's estimated there is a 30 to 50 foot drop, and this is where it gets mad, with an extremely high electrical voltage and anomaly. Like, this is getting messed up now. Like, what is this? Now, from the top of where this structure is, it's just the normal desert. There's no remains, nothing. They've looked at this place before, and there's literally nothing. And an underground investigation hasn't been carried out here before, so they need to see if they can do it. The archaeologist there said, "We believe the continuity of the shallow structure and the deep, large structure is very important, considering the electrical currency that is down there as well. But they said, however, this won't be revealed until further research has been carried out. So we don't know anything yet. All we know is there's a structure buried next to the pyramid under the ground, and there's some kind of electrical thing down there. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. I don't know what this is going to be, but this could get wild, so make sure you hit that follow button, and I will keep you updated."
Oh, I'm sure if they find anything, we're not going to hear heads or tails of it, and if we do, we're only going to hear maybe just enough to scratch the surface. I think the Egyptian government goes to great lengths to cover up a lot of discoveries that come out of Egypt, especially as it pertains to the Sphinx or the pyramids. And frankly, I don't think they have a right to. That's not just Egyptian history, it's world history. So I don't think they have a right to keep anyone from it. And I definitely don't think that they have a right to block off passages and not allow any further exploration. There are too many cover-ups involved with the pyramids for me to believe a word that comes out of the Smithsonian or the Egyptian government. And I mean, I think he's certainly he's found something very cool here, because there have been a lot of speculation that the pyramids were some kind of power plant, maybe something akin to, I don't know, like Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, some way to provide energy to the surrounding areas. I have no idea. I'm no expert when it comes to the pyramid, but I did think this video was pretty cool, so I wanted to share it. On that note, I think we'll go ahead and close up today's video. If there are any other topics or videos you'd like me to review or discuss, please remember to leave a comment and let me know. And of course, as always, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please remember to like and subscribe. The more engagement, the more exposure this channel gets, and the more it grows, the more videos I'll make. I'll see you next time.